Jesus 911.
Patrol, Jesus 911, two-man car. We're 10-8. Eddie, are you 10-8?
Jess, I'm 10-8 and ready for business here. Clear for calls.
Today's the feast day of Saint Andre Basset. Pray for us. Eddie, we want to continue. There's a topic that's of interest to Catholics. It's been of interest to Catholics for decades since the movie came out. It's the movie The Exorcist that came out in 1973. It was inspired by an actual event that happened back in 1949. And we're reading the notes, the actual diary of the priest that was there and recorded the exorcism. We're going to make a lot of commentary today more than anything else, at least for the last two segments. But let's pick it up where we ended off, Eddie. We ended off on Thursday, March 24th. So let's pick it up today on Friday, March 25th. You want to continue?
Yeah, just sure. We should just mention this is the diary that one of the attending exorcists kept, and this was done, like you said, back in 1949. But it starts off right now, Friday, March 25th, and this is what it says. Some of the text is redacted, so when we come across a word like that, we'll say the word redacted. At the rectory, Robbie was very restless and could not sleep. The group of priests prayed outside his door. For brief periods, Robbie fell into fitful tossing, which was not real sleep. On one occasion, Robbie fell out of bed but was not hurt. Next, he walked awkwardly into the arms of Father Bodern and Van Roo. Shortly before midnight, he lay prone on his back with his arms stiff at his side. He began a leg and arm movement as a gymnastic exercise. His arms mewed and out straight from his body and then moved back in straight lines to the side of his body. There was no noise. After midnight, there was some pitching about, but not for long intervals. Robbie cursed his father and spit at him, and then he kicked at the priests at his bedside. He pushed a nearby chair with his foot several times and finally fell into a deep sleep at 1 a.m. This was Friday night, the 10th night since the exorcism was begun. Perhaps the X given on the first night was meant to mean 10 days. This was a mark on Robbie's one of Robbie's legs. On Monday night, the redacted home was blessed by Father Bodern. No disturbances occurred Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday nights, and Robbie was getting back to normal life.
Thursday, March 31st. At 11:30 p.m., Robbie went downstairs and complained that he was feeling ill and that his feet felt cold, then hot. When the family went up to the bedroom with him, the disturbances began. First, the shaking of the bed. He began to write on the sheet with his finger, explaining between spells that he seemed to be reading from a blackboard. They were unable to make out what he was writing on the sheet. Then he began to talk, telling what he saw on the blackboard. Notes taken by his cousin are as follows. I will stay 10 days, but will return in 4 days. If redacted stays, gone to lunch. If you stay and become a Catholic, it will stay away. Redacted. Go ahead, Eddie.
It says, God will take it away 4 days after it is gone, 10 days. God is getting powerful. The last day when it quits, it will leave a sign on my front. Father Bishop, all people that mangle with me will die a terrible death. Family called rectory about midnight. Father Bodern and Van Roo arrived at the house at about 1 a.m., and Father Bodern began the rite of exorcism. At the principio, Robbie, in a spell, called for a pencil. At this point, and frequently at the beginning of subsequent spells, he addressed one or both of the two persons, Pete most frequently, and Joe. Taking the pencil, he began to write with it on the head of the bed, which was covered with a white cloth. This type of spell was writing this type of spell and writing was repeated perhaps 8 or 10 times. When he wrote, what he wrote was recorded for the most part. The family washed away the writing a few times, making room for more, and redacted, fastened large sheets of wrapping paper to the bed. The following is a record of most of the writings, though it is not complete. Some of the things written were repeated. Number 1.
Yeah.
In answer to the first set of questions, he wrote the Roman numeral 10, X. It was clearly the numeral, with crossbars at the top and bottom. This was written 4 times on the first occasion and was repeated several times during the exorcism, usually in an answer to the question diem. Number 2.
Which means day, by the way, in Latin, diem.
Day. Number 2. I will stay 10 days and then return after the 4 days are up. Number 3. I am the devil himself. You will have to pray a month in the Catholic Church. Number 4. In an answer to the comment to give nomen linguae latina, I speak the language of the persons. Word language was misspelled. I will put in redacted mind when he makes up his mind that the priests are wrong about writing English. I will, that is the devil, will try to get his mother and dad to hate the Catholic Church. I will answer in the name of spite. Number 5. In 10 days I will give a sign on his chest, and he will have to and have it covered to show my power. Number 6. He drew a strange thing that looked somewhat like a map with the 2,000 feet written on it, apparently connected with the early dreams about hidden treasures and a map to find it. I believe that it was in this connection that he spoke also, saying, yeah, this is what I got on the Ouija board. He drew a face also and wrote the words, dead bishop. Number 7. You may not believe me, then Robbie will suffer forever. Number 8. When commanded to give a sign in Latin, he wrote meaningless marks on the paper, not even letters of the Roman alphabet.
Friday, April 1st. Robbie had been taking instructions on Catholic doctrine since Wednesday, March 23rd, under the direction of Father McMahon. Robbie's father and mother, leaving Robbie's choice of religion to himself. Mistake. They had agreed that Robbie would not be confirmed in the Lutheran Church as had been planned previously. With the relapse into 5 days of respite, the mother, the father, and Robbie agreed that the proper thing to do was to have Robbie baptized a Catholic. Sponsors were picked, and the baptismal party was to arrive at the college church between 8 and 8:30 p.m. As the party of 5 relatives drove from Robbie's home, Robbie felt a strange sensation in his feet. There were alterations of hot and cold feelings, and the Robbie went into one of his spells. He began by saying, "So you are going to baptize me, ha-ha. And you think you will drive me out with Holy Communion, ha-ha." Robbie grabbed the steering wheel of the automobile, and his uncle was forced to pull up to the curb in order to subdue the violence. Robbie stiffened and fought. It was a major task to remove him from the front seat and force him into the back seat of the car. Robbie's father and uncle held Robbie in the back seat while the aunt drove. Even with careful supervision, Robbie leapt up to seize his aunt as she drove. An interesting sidelight is that the radio in the car would not operate while Robbie was in a spell, although it worked before and after. In the college church rectory, another hard struggle almost made it impossible for 3 men to carry Robbie from the car to the rectory. Inside the door of the rectory, Robbie shouted and spit. He was thrown on the floor of one of the parlors. His physical violence, even ice-cold water, had little effect upon him. The father and uncle were completely exhausted from the battle. Robbie was carried to the 3rd floor of the rectory and placed on the bed. There was little hope that the baptism could be administered at the baptismal font in the presence of the chosen sponsors. Michael the workman was chosen as proxy. Robbie was in and out of his seizures for short periods.